What's up, everybody? It's Schmitty with another episode of Talkin Schmit. Today on the program, going back east, we got Brian Howard on the show. It's a good one, man. You guys still high from your sugar? Did you do some Halloween? Did you get tricked or did you get a treat? I went to Calistoga, Indian Springs and was treated. Phase Skateboarding sent a sticker. Your sticker is on my wall. Thank you. I want to give a big shout out to my good friend, Jason Adams, the kid.
Shout out.
Best of vibes, my dude. Proud of you. I know it ain't going to be easy and I know it ain't easy, but step one is underway and you're going for it. And you know, I'm here. I got your back. Big love. Sobriety, man. It's a tough one. Shout out to the two bros of the show from different worlds that collided in the streets of Pacifica yesterday. That's you, Brendan Klein, and you, Timothy Donald McKenney. I guess apparently Tim was wearing a Talkin Schmit shirt and Brendan was driving down the street and was like slowed down. A little bit of talking happened and all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, your voice sounds familiar. Shout out.
Fuck are they, dude? I need my Talkin
That was
Schmit,
pretty
man.
cool. I got texts from both them yesterday. Football news. I got to talk about this. So it's funny. I'm thinking I'm every once in a while I get together with my wife's parents and we were talking last night at the dinner table and I'm like, I'm not really that into football. I could take it or leave it. And the 49ers, they left us. So, but they still call themselves San Francisco. So kind of torn. But anyway, check this out. They got this new quarterback that comes to the 49ers a couple years ago. They start calling him Jimmy G because he's a stud. He's this new guy. He's going to take us to the promised land. And he does go to the Super Bowl, which they lose. But it's like Jimmy G, Jimmy G, Jimmy G. A couple years later, he gets hurt. He's not playing so great. He's kind of getting bashed on the radio. He's Garoppolo. No more Jimmy G, right? Then yesterday, the Niners finally win a fucking game, and now he's Jimmy Jesus.
Jesus Christ!
And now for everybody's favorite new segment, things I have learned about my dog, Honeybee. Things I've learned about Honeybee. Well, this week, when we went to Calistoga, we left Honeybee over at the grandparents to watch. And what I learned is when Grandpa hits the dinner plate 5 times with the fork after he puts the food on, Honeybee runs and eats her dinner. All right, guys, we are now going to announce the winner for the Blood Wizard Kevin Kowalski skateboard deck. Ooh. Christopher Enright, you are in the running. Ryan Sprout, you are in the running. Alex Winslow, thanks for your input. Thank you all for sending in those photos. I narrowed it down to my favorite 4 and sent them to Kevin, and he came back with the winner. And the winner is... from Detroit, Michigan. Let's give it up for Ryan Sprout. Thanks for playing, everybody. We should have another giveaway soon. Appreciate y'all.
Head over to your local shop and ask for Blood Wizard. If they're out, then you can tickety tack on down to bloodwizard.com where you already have all of your conjuring needs.
Tickety tack.
All right, check this out. we got a new sticker up on talkinschmit.com from Todd Brattrud, who drew this up for us. Nice Sutro Tower sunset. $2. Talkinschmit.com. $2 for a sticker. And you did your part. If I got 138 episodes, you could buy a $2 sticker, I think, huh? All right, kids, here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready? And now for the Derby winner, Derby of San Francisco. Thank you so much. And thank you to the shop up on Haight Street. Janine, all y'all, big love. Really appreciate you guys doing this with us. So I just want to tell you that this contest was pretty much as easy it gets as long as you have Instagram. You go to Instagram, you make a post. See, even Honeybee knows. Listen to her. You make a post and you include the hashtag Talkin Derby Schmit. Then I go to that hashtag like I'm doing right now. That's right, honey. Tell them. And I scroll through. I hit up my wife, the executive director of the show, and I said, girlfriend, pick a winner. Go to Talkin Derby Schmit, the hashtag Talkin Derby Schmit. Get over there. Look through them all. Tell me who wins. And she decided that it would be in our best interests if we gave you the winner that you need. And I said, we decided? That's right, kids. Here goes. The winner of the Derby jacket is Duppy Conqueror. That's right, Duppy Conqueror. Hit me up with your address and size, and we will ship you out the Derby. Congratulations. And you never know when the next giveaway will be, probably next week. Thank you all for participating. Big thanks to Derby of San Francisco. And now let's get to our guest.
This is Brian Howard, and you are listening to Talkin Schmit.
It's cool. Like tonight is the night.
Here we go again.
Just give it the old college try, right now.
Big dog's in.
Smitty.
96 times, Schmitty.
Thanks, Schmitty.
We on? Schmitty?
Talkin Schmit.
That's called go to the hospital, bitch. I'd be shitting my pants.
Your Rolodex is fucking deep.
It's about the ones.
Who is this guy thinks he's tough shit?
What's up?
We're tastemakers.
Come on, Schmitty, what the fuck?
Let's hear it for Greg Smith. Yeah!
All right, kids, we are back and we are out east. We're in the state of North Carolina. We're with what Kyle Berard says is about the coolest, level-headed, nicest person in the world. This is Brian Howard, kids. What's up, Brian?
Not too much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Berard's in town, and just coincidentally, he hit me up today. They're working on some cement stuff in the backyard up in outer by the ocean. And
Okay.
I was like, what do you got on Brian Howard? And he's like, he's about the coolest, level-headed, nicest person in the world. I was like, there's my quote. That's all I needed.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's cool. I've known Kyle for a long time. Just him being from Virginia and stuff, being in the same area, and saw him as a kid, saw him as a wild young adult, saw him grow up. And then it was when they had recently that last park qualifier that was in Des Moines. I used to judge contests and stuff after skating and whatnot, but hadn't done that in quite a while after moving. And Matt Milligan actually hit me up kind of last minute, said they needed somebody because I think Renton Miller couldn't make it because of COVID. And so I squeezed in there, and I got to spend the whole week with those guys and hang out with Berard a bunch. So it was pretty cool. It was cool. He's just had his son, and I've got a couple boys, so it was cool watching him live those moments.
Cal's killing it, dude. I'm stoked for him.
Yeah.
He's come a long ways with everything. What's judging? What's it like? What do they pay you? What's the perks?
Well, that was sort of my first time with the World Skate Organization.
Was that Dew Tour?
Yeah, it was a Dew Tour contest. I guess I kind of loosely follow all that stuff still, even though I'm off in Western North Carolina, kind of disconnected. But it was the last park qualifier, because I think a couple of other ones had gotten canceled because of COVID. It was the next to the last street qualifier, because they had the one in Rome. But it was good. As far as, the day rate or whatever for judging, it was real good.
They pay your travel and that stuff too?
Yeah. They paid to get me over there.
Nice.
Got in there. I was there about 5 days. So luckily I had enough time off from work, got out there. It was a little kind of drawn out, took a little longer. With it being an Olympic qualifier, the weirdest thing for me was, they had to time and limit practices. So like you're skating and, they're warming up in the bowl, the park contest, and they would have to go in order. So it'd be like 10 guys each heat, and they'd have to go in order. You skate till you fall. So that was in it. And I guess the whole reasoning behind that was just so that everybody got even practice. But I had heard some funny stories that park was just getting finished. Like a week or two before, California Skate Parks was billing as, huge 88,000 square foot park. But I guess that bowl was the part was getting done, and they had security there at night, and there were people in the contest sneaking in, skating at night, and then when they get kicked out by the security, they'd start saying that they were from other countries. So I won't name any names, but it sounded pretty hilarious that they get busted for skating and they get thrown out. And they're like, oh yeah, we're from China, or we're from India, or whatever. So that sounded kind of funny.
That sounds about right too. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a cool experience, but it was definitely a lot different. I'm kind of indifferent with the whole, skateboarding going to the Olympics. It was, I don't know, matter of time before that happened. I think now looking at it, it went off about as well as it could for the first time. So now I think it just get better and better. I'm not I never really followed snowboarding, but I know when it got into the Olympics, the first year, some people thought it was the same thing, as good as it could be. Some people thought it was terrible, but I know the way it's been presented since then's gotten at least a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the first time you do anything, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes and learn from those, hopefully, and figure out how to do it better, smoother the next time. Interesting that they chose the bowls in the street and no vert ramp and no what's the other one, Mega or whatever. Like the Mega obviously doesn't seem like it appeals. I mean, who has access to a Mega ramp unless you're like, there's a few people that have them, but it doesn't make sense. But the vert ramp, I was a little surprised by not having vert skating. Seems like, I don't know. Is it, vert died, it came back. Was it ever dead? Who knows? But I'm sure Jimmy Wilkins would be awesome to watch.
He would be the champion of the universe. Yeah, I mean, being a vert guy, that was something I was kind of disappointed with. But the reasoning behind it, I believe, would be all the. It would go back to probably the IOC's the restrictions, or not restrictions, but rules that they have to have on a sport. Like it has to be basically done worldwide. It has to involve men and women. I think there's even the prize purse has to be equal or something to that degree. So therefore, there aren't that many vert ramps, but now there's tons of concrete skate parks.
Okay, I see.
So I think that's where that came in. I would love to see a vert discipline in there myself, just because that's what I always skated the most.
Yeah.
I love pools and bowls and all that stuff too, and street. But I think it would be great because I think there are a lot of people out there a lot of skaters like Jimmy Wilkins himself and all the guys that are really out still doing it. Their talents definitely need to be showcased, and it'd be great to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for now, that's probably what it was. But if skateboarding continues to grow, and if the Olympics has a hand in making it grow internationally even more, maybe there'll be more vert ramps too, and it'll end up in there as well. Because that's like snowboarding now. Snowboarding, there's a bunch of different events and stuff. It's not just half pipe.
I mean, I'm torn on the whole thing because a lot of my friends were involved with it. So, like, good for them. It's a good opportunity for someone. You can't say it's not. What it's doing to skateboarding, I'm not sure.
Like everybody says, the Olympics needs skateboarding more than skateboarding needs the Olympics, and that's true, and I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're trying to make the Olympics relevant to the future generations, and the generations that will be that are watching now and will be watching are doing these sports. And
the same thing, like if you take these dudes like that are bombing hills and stuff, you could have just like no cars, no traffic, a hill bomb. Who wins? Like it might not be the most entertaining on TV, but
it's cut and dry though. I agree with you. Yeah, it's whoever goes the fastest or who.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get back to the Olympics. Maybe we won't. But let's get into like the beginning of time for you. Were you born out in North Carolina?
I was born in Augusta, Georgia, but lived in South Carolina. I was right on the river. So I was born there. And as far as sort of the beginning of skateboarding, we lived a little bit outside of town. We were like 10 miles away from downtown or whatever. So I just kind of ran around the woods and stuff as a kid, driving four-wheelers and whatnot.
Nice.
But I kind of got into BMX bikes. At one point there was a store back this way back in the day called Otasco. And when you're just a kid living in the South, it was the best place because they sold your dad went and got new tires. They sold lawnmowers. They sold go-karts. And at one point in the kind of early 80s, they had the plastic GT spoiler skateboards, So I picked up one of those, just rode it in the driveway for, a few years, and then was getting a little more into ride BMX bikes, but it wasn't like racing or anything. It was just jumping some crap in the road with the neighbors. And I went to a bike shop in town, and they had skateboards. So I was getting a little more into it, and I was looking. It's funny. I was just back in my mom's old house, looking through a bunch of old magazines, and at the very bottom were a bunch of old BMX magazines, and they had like BMX Plus. There were skateboarders in them. There's BMXers on the half pipe, and then there's skateboard guys, and they threw a few pictures of the guys, riding the ramp. It was Hosoi and Caballero and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I went to that bike shop and got a Mark Gonzalez Going Trucks Vision Shredder wheels. But right around the same time, I discovered that that shop had a vert ramp on a trailer. So it was like a 10-foot wide vert ramp. It was probably only about 8.5 foot high, but they had it on a trailer, and they'd tow it around during this parade each year. And there was like 3 or 4 guys, and then they were young. They were, late teenage guys back then, because I was probably 12. And they'd skated it, and I saw it a few times. So my dad, he worked in a paper mill, but he did all sorts of carpentry stuff. He started looking at that ramp and he would look at the magazines and stuff that I had, and he's like, "Do you want to build one of those?" So he just out of the blue asked me if I wanted to build a vert ramp in the backyard. So of course I said, hell yeah, let's do it. So we built, started off 8 foot wide, 8 foot tall. Went to vert, had 16 feet of flat. Man, it was built like a house. Like it was insane.
Did you guys get ramp plans, or did he just know how to do it?
He looked at photos and stuff, or pictures and magazines, and he looked at that ramp on the trailer.
Okay.
And we went to work, and it came out great. Like, I mean, it was small, really, small, but ramps were little back then.
Yeah.
We painted it, because it was just plywood, painted it. I had tarps to put over it every night because it rained. But I had that for a while. I was riding bikes on it mostly. And then this neighbor of ours, this girl named Bobby Lynn, started dating one of those guys that I had seen on the ramp, on the trailer ramp. So she all the neighborhood kids would come over and push around and, ride bikes or whatever. So she's like, hey, can I bring my boyfriend over? She was a little bit older. She's like, can I bring my boyfriend over? He skates a lot. So he came over. It was one of the guys. His name was Brian too. So he started coming over and brought the other guys over. And so they came and started, and they could drop in. They could, I forgot to mention this. It's 8 foot wide. One side was just straight 8 feet. The other side was 3 foot of flat wall, a 2 foot wide channel, and then 3 foot of flat wall. So it was almost pointless. You could only go straight up and down or roll in.
And there was decks on both sides, right?
Yeah, full decks. PVC cut in half to start with. But then those guys started coming over and they were telling me like, oh man, you should skate, put your bike down, like skateboard more, blah, blah, blah. And they were doing stuff. They could do little airs and things. And they're like, but your ramp's way too narrow. And it's not tall enough either. It needs more vert on it. So then my dad overheard that for a while. So we added another 4 feet. So it didn't get that much bigger, but we made it 12 foot wide and it got like 8 inches taller. So it had more vert on it. And then we got metal coping. So one side was, straight 12 foot wide. The other side was a 4 foot wide, foot tall extension. And then your 3 foot, your 2 foot channel, and your other 3 foot. So I could only go over at front side because that would be from the narrow side to the wide side, or else you just land in the woods. So once that happened, those guys kind of convinced me. I started skating almost only. And then they told me that there was another ramp on the other side of town, and there was going to be a big contest. And they said there were going to be guys from all over the place. And at that point in time, like all over the place meant like my town, but what they meant was there were guys from Atlanta coming. There were guys from Tennessee, all over the, surrounding like 4 or 5 states. But what's funny is while all this was going on, I still hadn't learned to drop in. So I'd go up on the ramp and I could roll in, but I wouldn't drop in. I go up on the ramp every day and stand there for a few minutes. And there weren't that many kids my age. There were just these older guys. I'd stand there. My dad would drive around cutting the grass and he'd stop. He'd ask me if I'd done it yet. I'd say no. He'd start telling me, he's like, if you don't do this, you're never going to be any good. Like, you got to do this. You got to do it soon. So it took me a little bit. And then one day I was standing up there again. I was getting ready to do it. I was pretty convinced. He drives up on cutting the grass. It's been about a week or two. He's cutting the grass again. And then I drop in, make it to the flat and like run out of it. And I run back up, drop in, and I make it. And then he just drives off. Never even said a word. He just drove down the hill. Just left me to it.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Okay.
But anyway, he says he's going to take me over to that contest at the ramp. We find out where it is from the guy, Brian. So we drive over to a town called Evans, Georgia. And a guy named Alex Pilson has a 32 foot wide, I want to say it was like 9 foot and 10 foot vert ramp. Like it was huge. It was even bigger than the ramps that I had seen in all the magazines and stuff, because those are usually like bike ramps or whatever. So it totally freaked my dad out, because there was like a punk band there playing. There's like girls with mohawks, people drinking beer, smoking weed, all this stuff. But he stayed and he let me watch, because I was only about 14, I think, at the time. And I started watching, and it turns out that like Don Hillsman from Atlanta's there.
Shout out.
Jimmy O'Brien, his brother Dave.
Shout out.
I don't know if you ever remember the name Lenny Bird.
Love that guy like a brother. I'd give him a kidney if needed it.
He's from Atlanta. He was part of Team Glug. Lived down in Daytona later. Jimmy Lee Part from South Carolina. Blaize Blouin was there.
Shout out.
Gotta know who Blaize is.
Yeah. I mean, just for this area, there's a bunch of other guys too.
What year is this? Around 80s, I'm assuming.
This was about 86, I think.
86. Okay.
Yeah. So I saw that going on and just, blew my mind because I'd seen the photos and rented the Bones Brigade video from the bike shop. So I sat over there. They took me over there both days of the contest, and I got to watch. And, there's guys going 8, 9 foot high, doing every trick, inverts, all this stuff. And so that just piqued, totally sparked my interest. So after that was over, I'd just go home and just skate every day. And there weren't a lot of people that skated in the town. Like I said, especially my age, there were these guys who were a little older, and they only kind of came every once in a while because they were doing whatever they were doing. But eventually I made friends with another guy that we'd go over to that ramp over in Evans every once in a while. And there'd be a few guys there here and there. And it's kind of funny, and it ties things together in a little while. There's a guy there who we walk in, we start padding up. This one guy skating, he's getting mad, throwing his board. He takes his elbow pad and he throws it in the woods. And he's just like, all right, man, I'll see you guys later. I'm moving to Virginia tomorrow. And I didn't know who this guy was. I had no idea. He just grabs his stuff, leaves. And then, so we skate at Alex's ramp a bunch, and I keep skating and got to where I could do, I learned airs, foot or two out, kind of late grab, learn front side ollies over the channel, that kind of stuff. And at this point, I didn't even know that street skating existed. I just skated in my backyard or at that ramp, or if there was something else that came up. But then after a little bit, we started meeting some kids. Kids started coming over to my ramp that lived in the little surrounding towns. And then we'd skate the ramp for a few hours in the day and be like, hey man, you want to go street skate? And I was like, well, what do you do? We'll go ride around, I guess. Sure. But these guys could do board slides. They could ollie over stuff. I couldn't even ollie on the ground, but I could do ollies on the vert ramp over coping. So it was totally backwards, and just, learned it in my backyard. So I started traveling around with them. And then several of those guys could drive. We'd drive up to Columbia. There was another vert ramp up there that was a big one at a guy named Ricky Poole's house. And I went up there a few times. It had, it had pool coping. Go up there, and Blaize Blouin actually skated there a good bit. So, we're like the little kids that show up in the middle of the session. He's skating. We're dropping in, cruising around. He's getting mad at us, kind of saying stuff like, get out of here. We don't do those tricks here, blah, blah, blah. He'd get mad. He'd leave. So I experienced him that way for a while. And then I had that ramp for a few years and got better at skating and street skating too. And then all of a sudden, one of those older guys that I talked to was like, hey, did you hear about the skate park that's getting built in Augusta? It's in a warehouse, indoor. It's going to be a vert ramp, a mini ramp, spine. I was like, no, I hadn't heard about it. He's like, well, I think they're almost done. I'm going to go over there tomorrow. I'll take you. So we drive over, go in this warehouse, and they're just finishing up putting the last layer on the vert ramp. And we walk in, ask if we can help. And then I get introduced to this guy named Mark. And this guy named Mark G. He was the guy that threw the elbow pad in the woods and moved to Virginia about a year and a half before. But now he's back, and he and his family were opening up the skate park. The family had a moving and storage company, so they had these warehouses all over. And they just said, hey, look, put up a ramp, we'll open a skate park. And that was called Skateboard Connection. So it was in Augusta, Georgia from, I want to say 87 or 88 to beginning of 90, I think. So it was around about 4 years. Okay. But that once, and I was just graduating. I think I was in 12th grade. So, or no, I'm sorry, not even 12th grade, maybe 11th, but I was old enough to drive. So the minute I got done with school every day, I drive to the skate park. And that's where it was a good sized ramp, and really got to learn. That guy Mark was sponsored by Alva at the time. Then they threw contests, and that's when Blaize would come back through, and basically everybody in the Southeast, all the vert skaters in Tennessee and everywhere would come through. There was even a point where I think it was Life's a Beach did a tour through there. So Jeff Phillips came through one day. Blaize was with them. He was showing them around. It was Jamie Mouseberg came. He was leading the whole thing, but it was Brian Pennington, Bill Danforth, Phillips. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other guys, and it was cool because it wasn't a demo or anything. They just pull up one day and just skated all afternoon, and then and then everybody hung out, partied or whatever, and left.
Right.
But that's kind of where I really got into seeing everything. Started to go to contests and stuff in the areas. Got down to like Kona and Daytona and stuff like that. So I skated those a good bit more. Was
the hangar around?
That wasn't quite there yet. It, not at the very beginning, but it opened up later on. This was around the same time that like Eastern Vert was around up in Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
Like it opened, I think 89, I want to say. It was around about 4 years, but a little bit longer after. And yeah, I started meeting all those people. All the Charleston guys would come up to skate at Skateboard Connection for the contest and things. And then I want to say that the hangar opened up in 1990.
90. Okay.
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. And then, travel down there. I would go up to Wilmington a bunch and skate with Chet Childress at the Ramp House.
Yeah.
That had that little bowl. Yeah, the little bowl that he had all the Dogtown footage and stuff in.
And now, another first impression from Chet Childress.
Hey, hello. What's happening? This is Chet Childress, and you're Talkin Schmit. Here to talk to you about Brian Howard, a.k.a. Bralba. I've known Brian for a long time. East Coast vert skating, skateboarders. He lived a state away from me. Really solid stand-up guy. Always just been awesome to be around. We were at Kona way back. It's the year that Tom Boyle beat Tony Hawk. And rest in peace, Tom Boyle. Another awesome person that we've lost in the skateboarding world. He did ollie frontside late shove at that contest and beat Tony Hawk. I don't know how many times Tony Hawk's been beat at vert, but The Rock did it. But we're sitting in the parking lot, and Brian, I don't know who went first, but somehow I ended up Chalba and he ended up Bralba. And to this day, people, I don't know if I call Brian. I mean, I have Brian's name and my phone number is Bralba, and I still have random people that call me Chalba, which it's strange, but whatever. Everybody needs a nickname in skateboarding. Brian's just awesome. I mean, he's the inventor of the Howie slide, and that's where you do a front lip and you hang up on your truck and you slide with your back. You slide your back truck on the coping on vert. It's one of the first people in vert skating I saw do a front feeble on vert. Backside 50, 50s, 180 outs, good style, like a rad assortment of tricks. And yeah, Brian Howard, man, the dude's just badass.
Like now, Brian Drake has a vert ramp in his yard and right outside of Wilmington. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
We went there and they were filming that show, Eastbound and Down there.
Yeah. We're just in the town, you mean?
Yeah. Not at the skate park, but then I met that kid that's in it and he skates and like,
and he's rebuilding. He had a skate park in Aiken, which is the very town over from where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I've met him once or twice. He came through Tumieto when I was working there before we moved back east.
He's cool. He started some company called Fiance, and I just got married, and he sent me and my wife a box and stuff. I was like, it came too late. Now we have to call it married, not fiance. Or wife.
No, like I said, I've met him a couple times. Bunch of my old friends would go out and skate that park that he had. But apparently they got some land just recently. So he's going to start working on another park.
Wow.
Right in Aiken. It's called Aiken. It's about 20 minutes from Augusta, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
So it's an area that's certainly needed it. There's actually a concrete park in the Georgia side in Augusta now. They got built several years ago. So there's, there was always some stuff to skate, like backyard ramps and stuff, but there's not like multiple parks in the town. It's a big enough town to have a couple, but that's just never happened.
And where did Blaize live? Was he in Charleston or?
Yeah, he was from Charleston.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like when you were young and naive and stuff and kind of just skating the ramp and kind of bumming them out, did you know like who that was, or were you just oblivious?
No, I did.
Oh.
I mean, because that very first contest that we went to, you know, I already knew that there were pros, and I knew that there were AMs, and I knew that I was like, just watching, I was like, he's obviously the best guy. And then I asked somebody like, what's his name? And they're like, oh, he's Blaize. He's from Charleston. And I think at the time, because he rode for Powell for a little bit, I believe. I don't think he was on that yet. This was before GNS and everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I saw who he was. I knew who he was, and I'd see him around. And, you know, like I said, we'd get to that ramp. And there's a guy named Jimmy Leapart. He was from Columbia originally. He lived down in Charleston later. Now he's out in Colorado. But he was Blaize's good friend. I met him down at our park, Jimmy. So I kind of knew him already. So we'd show up at the ramp in Columbia. He would be pretty cool to us, but Blaize just at the time just wasn't, he didn't want us around or whatever. He was skating or he was getting mad, whatever. Yeah. He didn't want us around. Huh. So you know how it is with the older guy or whatever. The older guys get mad. So that happened a bunch of times, but then I started getting a little bit better. I know talking to like Neil Hendricks and stuff, he said he ended up at places where Blaize, you know, at around the same time, Neil was coming up, getting better at skating. He'd show up and he got the same vibe and stuff. But years later, when it's kind of funny, I was at Eastern Vert at one point, just up for a weekend skating, and someone had called the shop or whatever, and it was Chris Carter. It was him and Mike Hill touring around the Southeast with, you know, Blaize. Neil Blender was actually with them.
I love Neil Blender, man.
And they were touring all around filming for the footage video. They were just like, hey, we're coming your way. Like, can you keep the park open a little bit later? You know, we should get there such and such. And everybody's like, oh, of course. So they came through. They had been down in Florida. Then they were working their way up. They'd been through Charleston, came to Eastern Vert and skated and stuff. And at the, you know, around that time, that friend of mine, Mark, had got me on like Alva Flow. So I was kind of sponsored, been going to some contest, but those guys show up. I was kind of bummed out on the Alpha boards. They were messing up the concaves and things. So I just skated or whatever. And Mike Hill was filming a bunch. He was filming everything, like all sorts of people. And this was already, I kind of knew who people were. I knew Brian Schaefer and Frazier existed down in Florida. You know, knew who was out there, the younger guys. And they're filming and filming and filming. We all skate. I'm skating. Neil, all these locals are skating and stuff. And then at the end of it, and the guy, Jimmy Leapart, I forgot, he rode for GNS too. He was on the trip with them. At the end of the session, everybody's just kind of hanging out talking. They're getting ready to pack up, drive on wherever else. And Chris Carter comes up to me and goes, hey, you know, my name's Chris. I'm from GNS. And we filmed you for a while out there, you know, in the park. And I was curious if you're interested in riding for GNS and being in this video that we're filming. And so they'd filmed me the whole time. I had no idea. I didn't really think about it. So I was like, yeah, sure. I kind of didn't want to do the Alpha boards anymore. So he gave me, 3 or 4 boards or whatever, and gave me his cards and, you know, call me in a month. We'll be back home in San Diego by then. And, you know, we'll send you more stuff. Huh. And then, so I was just kind of shocked because he's with Blaize that, you know, didn't really like me. But then it turns out I started talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, Jimmy Leapart, he's like, hey, you know, those guys asked me if I knew you. And I said, yeah. And Blaize kind of chimed in and said, we should put him on the team. So it was kind of out of the blue. I had barely talked to Blaize other than on the deck, like, you know, excuse me, you go. But then what's funny is I find out that in that trip, Brian Schaefer got on GNS in Florida at Daytona, and Thomas Morgan from Canada was also down in Florida at Daytona, and they put him on too.
Wow, he was sick.
Yeah. So it was super, and I'd met him once or so already at some contests. So it was cool to hear that they were going around to film for that video, and they were sort of finding new AMs and stuff. You know, at that point, that was like, you know, Willie Santos was little AM. Andrew Reynolds was on GNS back then. I think they'd already knew about him. But he was tiny. I mean, he was like 10 at the time.
Yeah. Oh shit. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is a good time to ask you, like, who are the guys that you're seeing in the mags that you're like, these are the dudes for you? Like, not your local guys, but guys that like are worldly. Like if they're in Thrash or Trans World or in a video or something, like that guy stands out. That's my guy.
Yeah. I mean, kind of jumping back a little bit when I was talking about the BMX magazines, you know, at first I didn't even realize they were pros. I just thought they were guys that skated, and there would be like the little, I don't even know if it was CCS, but like the little CCS page or whatever that had all the pictures of the boards.
Yeah.
And I'd see like a Lance mountain board. This is when I was like 14. I thought it said large mountain, and I thought the Tony Hawk was a tomahawk. And then I was like, Steve Caballero, like, what does it even say that for? Like, I was like, people don't have names like Caballero. That's because I'm from the South.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's Smith and Howard and, you know, Johnson, and it's meat and potatoes. And I just didn't grow up realizing all that other stuff. I mean, so it was funny. I kind of didn't realize it. But then after a while, I rented, you know, Bones Brigade Video Show and Future Primitive. So that was it. Like, copied the tapes, played it over and over and over and over. So, you know, I liked the guys I liked. Once I realized Large Mountain was actually Lance, I was like into him, into Steve Caballero. Of course, given the choice between Christian or Tony, at the time I went Christian. You know, I liked, you know, he went high and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I watched those guys, and then at that point I hadn't realized that there were really others, because there weren't really a lot of videos at that point. But I did see, I guess it was one of the Del Mar contest videos. Watched that a lot. That's when I started seeing that there were other guys like, you know, Steve Alba, Mickey Alba, even Grasso and those guys. So I knew of them. And then I started seeing the guys in the area that, like, you know, I saw Blaize skate, and I was like, wow, there really are people that can skate as good as those guys over here. You know, so I could, at that point, I'd say Lance Mountain, Steve Caballero, and Hosoi were like the ones I liked at that point.
Dial over tricks.
Yeah. I was still that. Yeah.
Like, I'd rather see Christian do a basic backside air than Tony do a finger flip, 540 fairy, whatever crazy.
Yeah. I was that way. And that kind of went along with watching Blaize skate and stuff around here, because
Blaize is fucking,
because that's like, even that first day that I saw him in that backyard, that was the thing that stood out. And I've always said that about him, was he may have only done 10 tricks, but he did those 10 tricks better than anybody else did.
That's how I look at it too. I feel like anybody can do a trick if they put enough time into it, but not anybody can do it the way that guy does it.
Right. Right. That's exactly the way I felt watching him. But yeah, kind of jumping back in there, you know, that you got sponsored by GNS, started going to like the NSA contests and stuff. Actually, when I had the Alva boards, I've been to one, but I did terrible. That was in St. Pete. That one was in St. Pete, and it was cool because that's when I saw a lot of other guys. Like Sean Miller came down. He was on GNS at that point, and I wasn't quite on there yet. That's when I really saw Frazier skate really well. He did good in that St. Pete, you know, Southeast District. Bucky Lassick had gotten hurt and came down and skated that one.
My shit's taken care of.
He got hurt, so he couldn't skate the Northeast one. He came down there, and that was another funny one. I went down to that contest with that guy Mark G that opened the skate park in town, and I had to miss a bunch of school so we could go down there and skate some stuff and practice. Then the contest was over, and he won't mind me telling this story because we're still buddies. But he was like, "Hey." He just turned 21. He's like, after the contest is over, I'm going back to Daytona because Stone Edge is open, and I'm not going home for a week. And if I had missed any more school, I'd have flunked out of 11th grade, I think. So he's like, so you need to find your own way home or come with me. So anyway, contest day comes up. We pull up in his van. everybody starts getting out. He just grabs my bag and sits it outside. And he goes, "So you're on your own now." So I didn't know what to do. I just walk up onto the deck with my pad bag and all my stuff. But it's funny because I ended up catching a ride back to North Carolina with Mike Sinclair and Neil Hendricks. So that's how I got to be really good friends with them. That's how the friendship started. Contest happened, did crappy. I think Sinclair did crappy too. So we all drove home in a bad mood, but they took me through my town, dropped me off at the gas station. And that's where we started. That's how I began to know them. Yeah. So that was kind of that quick story.
Anyway, long story short.
Do you remember meeting Chet for the first time?
Yeah. I don't remember the exact first time, but he would come over to Eastern Vert for contests and stuff.
Okay. Glasses.
That's where, glasses. That's the first. He would come over. Like Pete Thompson would come over. That's where I met Pete for the first time. Even like Bob Reynolds, he would come over with those guys back then. Yeah, I mean that Eastern Vert Park was, as far as vert and mini ramp, tranny skills and stuff. Everybody in the area would come through there because they did a bunch of contests. I think one of the district or regional contests, NSA regional contests, were there. And guys would come down from Maryland and even Rhode Island and stuff, come down there, like Derek Krasauskas and Bucky, Matt Dove would come down.
Shout out.
That's the first place I met Buster. Actually, no, I met Buster at Woodward, but Buster would come down a lot. I don't know if you remember the name Brian Boyd.
Yeah.
He would come out from Tennessee a bunch. And then from the South, that's, Mike Frazier, Schaefer, all the Tampa guys would come up. They'd, have a van or something. They'd drive up and down the East Coast and they'd come through there all the time. So those sessions were huge. And such a good connection of everyone. Even one of those NSA contests, that's the first time I ever saw Jamie Thomas. He came up from Alabama for the street contest. Yeah. So that was a little hub. And then later when the hangar opened, I'd go over there. And by that point, that was after Blaize had already got me on GNS. So I show up there and it's like something totally changed. He's like, as soon as we walk in the door, he's like, "Hey man, how's it going? Where are you guys staying? You need a place to stay? You can stay at my house." So every time, and that was only 2.5 hours from my house. So we would go down there quite a bit. And of course the bowl was the best thing that had ever been built out of wood at the time. It was nuts. Chet would come down there. We'd meet up. Mike Sinclair would go down. Neil Hendricks came down. Everybody, there was one time we went down, Barker Barrett,
shout out,
a guy named Mark Podersky and Sean Miller all drove down in a little Honda Civic, and we all stayed at the same place. And but it was super cool and super accommodating. And like I said, that's when I got to know Blaize pretty well. Anytime we came in town, he's just like, "Come on, you're coming over to our house. You're staying in my room," because he had a big house, that he split with a bunch of the guys from the park.
You're officially not a Grom anymore.
Yeah, it was cool. And he was super nice. And I remember all this stuff that happened, like at one of the hangar contests, we were all hanging out over there, and like Tim Payne was there because he came up from Florida, and all the Florida dudes, and they're all playing poker and stuff. And at the time, I didn't drink at all. I was still I was probably like 19 or 20. Didn't drink, didn't smoke or anything. I never played poker. Didn't even know how to play poker. But they were like, "No, get in here. Come on, we'll teach you how." And I ended up leaving with like $75, 5 pair out of a 6-pack of socks. And because everybody just started throwing everything in, and a bag of weed.
This guy's got bud.
So I ended up winning money, and I didn't even know what I was doing. So I just remember that. And, it was super cool that they were that. And that's what I was, getting to know everybody. And it was awesome. Blaize, he always played the Clash. He played the Sandinista, the double album.
That's
something that always sticks in my head. Like that was always playing. And it was super cool. And it's a shame to think. And then I saw him years later after he moved up north for a while, was snowboarding for a bit, still skating. And it was, really sad to hear that news that he passed. 9/9/99.
Really?
Yeah. I actually remember it. It wasn't that long ago, but I remember exactly when that happened.
That's insane. Wow. Did you spend any time with Blender?
Not really. Not at that point. I mean, I always see all these guys, and I have like, from all over the years, like little stories. Like I remember seeing, he came through it. I knew who he was already. He came through Eastern Vert. So everybody was super psyched because he's the elusive Neil Blender.
Yeah.
And everybody loves the way he skates and everything, his art and just his whole demeanor. But he came through. There was a rectangular bowl, like 6 or 7 foot deep. And it was kind of a weird bowl, but you could just go super fast around it. They even actually used to have like races in it. But he was skating that. And then there was a little tiny mini ramp up on top of the deck of the vert ramp, like back up over the pro shop. And he just skated that stuff. And just, everybody was kind of watching out of they didn't want to watch, but everybody was watching what he was doing. And there's some of that footage in the video footage from that. So that was my first, I remember something else now. So anyway, this was before that. This was when I was probably like 16. Savannah Slamma 2 was happening.
I was there.
You went to it?
I didn't go to Savannah Slamma 1. I heard about it, but Savannah Slamma 2 was coming around. And I was friends with a couple kids in town, and their mom was like, we'll take you. So, all right, let's go. Couldn't wait. We drive down and we get a hotel that's right next to the arena. And it's the same hotel that most of the pros were staying at. So, like I said, I was probably 15 or 16, walking around. All these guys are there. They're out in the parking lot. Scott Oster's out there trying to hit on my friend's sister that went with us. Yes. Watching people hit slappy curbs and stuff. And I remember at one point walking in, getting in the elevator, and I get Adrian Domain and Steve Caballero's autograph. We come down the elevator, and the door opens, and I see Tony on the other side of the lobby signing autographs. So I'm just like, well, I'll get Tony Hawks. I was more into Christian, but I haven't found him yet. So I see Tony, and I walk over, like, hey, Tony, can I get your autograph? And he just turned, like he didn't hear me or whatever, but he turned around and walked out. So totally snubbed me. I'm sure it wasn't intentional. Sorry, Tony. Yeah. But from that, for the longest time, I was like, I hate him. Christian is the best. But then another time walking around, I'm walking down one of the hallways. It wasn't a hallway. It was like an outside, like motel style, but walking around, and I see Neil Blender walking by or walking toward me. And I'm super nervous and just walking. He looks at me and he just says, big scissors cut. And my eyes got big, and he kept walking. And I couldn't figure out for the longest time. I was like, wow, he said big scissors cut. I wonder what that means. What's the code?
Talking about your loops on your shoelaces?
No, it was funny. But years later, I started listening to the Minutemen. Big scissors cut! And that's a lyric from one of their songs. So he was singing the Minutemen too. Okay. But it took years. It took 3 or 4 years. And but it was cool. Like that particular contest, I guess Neil helped design and build a bunch of the street course. There were two opposing like quarter pipes that tapered down, and they had like double coping on them, and it had a steep side. So you could, and they, like I said, it went from small on one end to taller on the other. And I just remember he would hit it one way, like he could backside ollie really big, and the other way, I think he grinded down. You could grind off the end onto the floor. And years later, I got to, it was at Claremont, like 2002 or 3 or whatever it was, when I know he was skating there a lot. I'd go skate the pool, started talking to him a bunch, and got to have a full conversation. I didn't tell him about the big scissors cut thing, but I started asking him about those quarter pipes, and he was, seemed pretty stoked that somebody remembered him. But this is another thing that stuck to your head. And,
it's interesting because that was probably the time. I'm good friends with his bro, Alex Horn. I don't know if you remember him. Yeah. And so I was talking to Alex today on the phone coincidentally, and I was like, I'm going to interview Brian. Do you know anything about him? He's like, dude, that guy taught me a lot of shit. Like that guy, like kind of was like the guy that helped me learn indies and like a bunch of stuff. And he's like, you won't remember me. I was like 12.
I totally do. But that's funny because I totally do. I met him, at Claremont, and he was friends with Darren and Peter and all those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about listening to your podcast, and not even it's for some reason it's every person somehow, even people I don't know. And that's one of the things that I want to touch. Like, I never really got to know you out there, but and that's more probably my fault, my insecurities. If I didn't feel comfortable, I didn't know what to say to somebody, I didn't say anything. But anyway, I'll get into that maybe at some point, because I'm sure I'm going to ramble. But I mean, I totally remember meeting Alex with those guys and just being awesome. Like, I didn't know where he came. Like, I didn't know, like, I've never seen this guy before, but he's friends with Darren and Peter and those guys. So he's awesome.
I have 2 8th-grade diplomas.
Yeah. That pool was super fun. It was a really cool place to have in California, because once I moved out to California, it was so different than what I was used to. Like the parks in the east. And I lived in Tampa for a few years, before I moved to California. Mm-hmm. And that was always the best, because you went to the park, but the park was basically always open. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like in California, you had to go between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
Right.
And that was the weirdest thing for me once I moved out to California. And, Tampa is like, it's open from noon to 10. Any of the hours that you could possibly want to skate, you can go skate. But then you go and everything was a YMCA or somebody's private ramp, So
the thing out here is they didn't take into consideration, I don't think, when they built stuff, like where the sun was going to be. And a lot of times there's the hour windows of like, can't skate because the sun's going to blind you at these times. I know that, especially in San Diego area, like Darren and Pete have their time that, like, we get to Claremont at this time, we stretch this time, the sun goes down at the perfect, like, they got it all figured out. It's pretty cool.
No, that happened to a lot of places too. It happened out here when you had outside stuff too. But but again, like, a lot of our stuff at those years was indoors, so it didn't matter. Like the hangar was inside. But yeah, there are definitely some ramps that I remember. Yeah, several ramps that you had 2 hours or 3 hours that you could get by, but only an hour and a half of it was really good.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure this is a true story. From my perspective, it was 1992. Me and Phil Shao got into my truck and drove across country and skated a bunch of stuff, including the hangar, and then came back to the amateur finals at the skate zone. And I'm pretty sure you might have even won, but I think you got like in the top 3.
It was 91.
91.
Yep. Yeah, 91. And somehow I did actually win.
Okay. Do you remember at all? Do you remember who Phil was?
Absolutely.
Do you remember him
100%.
skating it and what song he came out to by any chance?
I can't. I remember him because I heard people had told me about. I can't remember what song it was. What was
it? Was Weird Al Yankovic. It was like he dropped in. It was the Raya the Kaiser. Like basically like, and then his first wall, he was laughing so hard he ate shit. And then the second run they played again, he's like, "No way, we got to play a regular song."
Yeah, no.
That was so sick for me because that was like Jordan Richter, McKay, like yourself, all these dudes, like, and they were just about to go pro. Tim Brock, like everybody. There was a outdoor street contest, a mini ramp contest, a vert contest, and then there was a bowl there, but I don't think there was a contest in it. But like we were skating it with Jeff Taylor and a bunch of dudes, and just the amount of ripping that was going on was like next level from our, like, it was just like, oh, there's Cardiel, there's this guy, like, it was like, it was really cool. And so was that GNS days for you still?
Yeah, that was, that was 91. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, I know Colin was in it, Jordan Richter, Steve Barra.
Right.
Was in there.
Skating vert.
Skating vert. I know Phil. There was that guy I mentioned before, Brian Drake. He was I think he was top 10, rode for Vision. Then like in the street contest, Willie Santos, I think, won.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure Jordan got top 3 in all 3 contests.
I think he did. Yeah. It was super cool. I'm trying to think who all was in that. But yeah, that guy Derek Krasauskas from Maryland, Bucky's real good friend. He was down there.
So that was the first time I ever used a video camera. My uncle let me borrow his video camera for that trip.
The shoulder monster?
It was an 8mm, but it wasn't huge. It wasn't like the VHS ones, but it was bigger than today. But I just remember going like, oh, you have to charge batteries? Like I had no idea what I was doing. And like we would get to like, I think at the hangar, like there was hardly any battery power. And so I filmed like 5 to 10 minutes of Phil skating. I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. The battery died. Yeah. I had to call my uncle that night and get instructions and like, but I got some footage of the contest. I'll have to try to find it, but that was the first year. Like, so that was me getting the bug of filming and like,
that's cool.
Feeling like, okay, I mean, if I look back, that's where my archival starts.
Yeah.
So that was that. And that was a big day for you getting a win. I'm sure you must have turned pro pretty quickly after that.
Yeah. I mean, that was how it worked for especially the vert guys. Well, even the street guys at the time, because a video part was something totally different. So you get through that, through the NSA, you get top 5 or so, you're probably going to end up pro. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I turned pro for them. It was probably, let's see, I want to say that was like midsummer. And then I had a board come out for GNS, probably like the next ASR contest or ASR trade show around that time, something like that.
What was the first graphic? Was it the hockey one?
It was the hockey mask. Yeah. It really had nothing to, I'm not into hockey. I don't like Jason. It was kind of like, we're going to make you a board. What do you think of this? And I was just like, sure. So yeah, had that one. And then later got a slick bottom board. And then, so I had those two. So it was funny. It started out like first check, like $300. Cool. And this, Vert's already starting to kind of die off. Got 2 boards out. Next checks. Ooh, $750. Like, this is cool. I can, plenty of gas to drive around. And then, next month was something or other. And then it started going down. It's like $400. And then it's like $200. And then it gets to a point like GNS at the time, they were thinking about becoming, the and the ampersand sign. They wanted to redo their image or whatever.
Right.
And so it's starting to get really weird. And one month, the team manager calls me and goes, hey, man, we don't have a check for you this month. Actually, 3 warp boards got sent back. So, I mean, if we were really going to be technical, you owe us $6. He's like, but we don't expect you to send it to us.
Wow.
I was like, okay, cool. And then a couple months went by, didn't get any money at all. And then I was down in Florida. I went down and was skating with like Mike Frazier and Matt Dove was down there. And we were all skating for a while. And finally, I just kind of got fed up with it. And I called Larry Gordon, and I had a contract. I called Larry Gordon, and there was going to be a contest at Kona soon. And I was just like, called up because I don't even know who the team manager was at the time. He may have been gone. Or I told the team manager, hey, I'm going to quit. And he said like, well, we're going to have to talk to Larry. I was like, okay, well, have him, I'll call back and talk to him next week or whatever, because there weren't cell phones. So I ended up calling him back, and he's like, look, we've got, some boards here with your name on it. We've got money invested in this. You can't just quit. If you do, there might be some sort of, legal proceedings. And I told the guys, like, go ahead. You can sue me if you want to sue me or something like that. Go ahead. My car's in my mom's name, and I don't have any money. So he's like, well, I need some time to think about this. And I had to wait and call him back a couple of days later. And he's like, okay, well, we're just going to let you go from the contract. But just don't get any more product with your name on it out for 3 months. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So quit that, was down in Florida, getting ready to skate this Kona contest. When they had the big orange ramp, the metal ramp. and Matt Dove actually was riding for Planet Earth at the time. And Buster Halterman was on Planet Earth. And I'd met Chris Miller here or there. And so Matt called Chris, said that, I was looking for a new board sponsor. Chris seemed kind of interested. So then I got on the phone with Chris Miller. And he's like, this was like the beginning of the next summer, like 92. So fortunately, he's like, yeah, man, I really like your skating. I'd seen him at ASR and skated with him a bit. And he's like, yeah, let's put you on the team. We'll pay your entry fees to the contest through the summer. Because there were actually some contests back then. And, he's like, I can give you $150 a month. And, if you get some good coverage for a while, we'll give you a board. And then that turned into 13 years of riding for Planet Earth.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, so just, no sponsor me video, no nothing, just, got on the phone with them. And that was like my longest lasting sponsor.
What you want another tie-in between us?
Sure.
So my first time filming was the contest you won. My job at Thrasher was a phone call from Paul Zawanich, who rode for Planet Earth. And he got me the job at Thrasher. So, nice. Yep. We got these connections. Like I like playing the Kevin Bacon game, three shades of separation or whatever.
Well, it's funny how much tighter they all are in skateboarding, at least. There's no 3 degrees. It's like a half a degree.
Half a degree. Yeah. And, Bob Reynolds was on a trip one time. I got to tell this story because it's hilarious. I know you know Bob. And they came back. It was a fucking think trip with adrenaline cross country and back. And they came back and they had all spun out. Like they went like a little too long, a little too unprepared. They were a little green, whatever it was, but they all just spun out. They come back and Bob somehow drove on Highway 17 in his van by himself and went over the middle divider, which is so gnarly. And the next day he calls, he's like, hey, can someone come pick me up? So I had to go pick him up. And I was like, what the hell happened? He's like, dude, I don't know. I just drove over the middle divider. I was like, no fucking way. That's impossible. And like they had photos and shit. I'm like, to this day, I tell people that and they don't believe me, but it's so crazy. If you know, Highway 17 is a 2-lane windy road that goes from San Jose over the hill to Santa Cruz. And so it's just this hectic thing. But and then like, I don't know. I got a lot of friends me and Chet have spent a lot of miles together too and all that. So it doesn't blow my mind when we know the same people. Schaefer's always been a good friend of mine throughout the years and all that stuff. So
that's what I was saying before. I when we first started talking, text you about listening to the podcast and stuff. I was like, man, I feel bad now because there were people, I've had people say it before, like, man, I thought you were such a jerk, or you were a dick, or you dick, or whatever. But because I didn't talk to them, but it was because I didn't know what to say. So I just didn't say anything. But I'm sure that happens for all people all the time.
Oh, dude, we're all socially awkward. You know what I mean? Like it's taken, look how old we are to finally do this kind of stuff. It's like, most people are doing it at 16. We're like 100. Explain is it a Howard slide or the Howie slide?
I used to call it the truck slide.
Did this happen on accident or was this on purpose?
It was a little bit of both. So there was as time went on, I liked Bod Boyle as Hugh Bod Boyle as a Hugh Bod Boyle. Back to Neil Blender. So there was a pro contest in St. Pete. There was a vert contest and street contest in this arena. It was funny is I was in the parking lot where that place was this summer on vacation as an old dad, which flashed it all back. But they had a ramp that was kind of like it was an elbow. So it had a hip and a little pocket corner on it. Mm-hmm. And we went down and we're watching it. Frazier and all those guys, I already knew him. We're all hanging out. It was Tom Boyle's first pro contest. I think he got second to last or last. We know it. It was awesome anyway. but Bod was skating, and I saw him at one point do a fakie ollie and hang up, but he grabbed his tail, I think, like totally hung up. But the fakie ollie was a couple feet high, hung up, grabbing the tail and pulled it in. And then I saw him do a frontside ollie tail grab, hang up and pull it in. And this was, on purpose, repeated, did it a few times. So then I was like, I wonder if you could do the fakie ollie and hang up without using your hand. So I went back to that park in my hometown and started trying that, just fakie ollie and hang up. But just keep your feet super light, like super light on your feet. So right as you hang up, you just bump the nose a little bit and it would come in. And then started to do the frontside tail grab one. And I was like, I wonder if I can just do a frontside ollie a little ways and like kind of straight up and down and hang up and then do it. And so that was, you couldn't. So then I was like, I'm going to try to do a big frontside ollie and hang up but make it a lip slide. But you can't do it if maybe you could get lucky, but you can't do it if you just fly up in the air and then hang up. You're going to fall. Uh-huh. So I just figured out that you could turn like below the coping and almost slide up into it, but you're turning and just go straight to your truck so that you don't like go up and then bang down on the truck. If you go straight to it, you could slide. And it had already been hanging up and coming in. So I was like, I'll slide and just be really light on my feet.
Yeah.
And it'll pop right in. And at the time, I always think about it like I rode gull wings back at that point, I think. Yeah. Mm. So I wondered if it was the shape of the base plate or something, but no. Later I rode for Venture and it worked fine on them. But yeah, I just did that. And I kind of goofed around doing it. And then frontside reverts were real big. And so I did it a little bit. And as soon as your truck came in, your wheels are on, you could revert.
Yeah.
So I just figured it out. And that was right before that NSA contest. So I that was like and then I also learned backside 50-50 backside reverts. So those are my two like secret weapons, I guess.
Okay.
That I'd learned and I hadn't really done them many other places. So I just showed up at the contest, and I always kind of thought the Howie slide, that's more from Sinclair because he's always called me Howie.
Uh-huh.
But I always kind of thought I thought it was kind of a joke, and I kind of didn't think it was that good of a trick.
Uh-huh.
But I did it and everybody loved it. So
I saw Mike Frazier just did one like yesterday on Instagram.
Yeah, I know. He's done them a few times off and on, but yeah, he did it again.
That's cool.
I think Sinclair did them a couple times on Vert.
Really?
I think he did years ago. But I've seen a few other people. There was some other guy on Instagram that on a curved bench, he ollies up and he's sliding on his truck, but his nose is dragging on the marble ground too. So his truck's sliding on the top of the bench, and I guess his nose blunt's sliding the ground as well. And he did it. I think he did frontside and backside. Because I tried to do backside on a vert ramp a couple times and it didn't work out too good.
What was the story with the intro to that video part? Like it was like a skit or something, and you're chewing tobacco and like you spit off the bridge, I think. Yeah, that was that video. I think Ty Evans was working on that one, and they just wanted a tie-in from everyone. And they're like,
were you a big
Copenhagen guy?
I chewed some, but it was more like, you're from the South, so we'll do this.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of the tie-in.
Right.
I get, yeah. It's funny that like now that I'm a grown adult man, we're in North Carolina. All the guys I work with are like, "Oh man, I looked you up on YouTube. Yeah, you like Kodiak?" So it's pretty funny that's the thing that I get. That's the first thing they see. They don't even see skating. Yeah. They're just like, "Oh, this guy likes chew." Yeah, this guy's cool. I like him even more now. Those guys at Backdoor Skate Shop?
We don't do the frisbees, bikinis, hacky sacks. We're strictly a skateboard shop.
There was a time period where I'd already moved to California. And so I don't have a connection with a lot of like the people from the area. I put this shirt on the night when I came home just because it was when I got back. It was like the first month I was in North Carolina. Sinclair and like everybody had put together this North Carolina skate reunion. So I got to see all it, and they sort of grandfathered me in because I spent so much time in North Carolina. I'm really, from South Carolina, but that was cool because I got to go meet a bunch of people that I hadn't really known.
Mm.
So the guys from Backdoor, I probably have met them or we've crossed paths, but I don't know them like I know, Bob and Sinclair and all those guys.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they're really cool. They've been supporting what I'm doing, and dude checks in with me early because he's 3 hours ahead. He's like, I know you get up early. I'm rattling your cage. He's like a real, like, pretty rad dude. I appreciate them a lot.
Yeah, no, I remember listening to that episode where you were talking to a few different people, and I just didn't know him, but it was cool to listen to him. Sounds like a really cool dude.
What do you think some of the highlights would be of your time with Planet Earth? Like, did you go on like a super special trip that sticks out, or like just some time with one-on-one with some of the dudes or any of that stuff?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, just to go right to when I first got on, went out. I had been to California. Let's see. I've only been to California once for GNS.
So my second time, was he on there?
He was on when it was through H Street.
Okay.
Yeah. So by the time I got on, it was already Chris doing it by himself. He'd already gotten out of there.
Okay.
But the first trip I went out there, we were going, flew to San Diego, stayed at Chris's house. Buster Halterman was there too. And we drove from there up to Sacramento for one of the contests at that water park.
I was there.
I was there.
Yeah. So that was my first trip with Chris. But it was funny because I show up to California. He's like, hey, do you want to go get, where do you want to eat? You want to get some Mexican food? And I was like, I've never had Mexican food.
What the fuck is that?
Like, again, meat and potatoes from the South. There was only like one Mexican restaurant in all of Augusta when I grew up. Literally one. And my mom and dad were like, nah, we're not eating Mexican food. We're not going to like it. So anyway, Chris was like, okay, well, I'm going to start you. I'm going to break you in early or break you in easy. We'll go to Taco Bell
quesadilla.
And no, he's like, I'm going to take you to Taco Bell today.
I really like tacos.
And then I'll take you to the place called, I think it was Las Olas place in San Diego. He's like, we'll go there tomorrow. So you'll see bad, and then you'll see good. Okay. So we did that.
Right.
It was funny around that same time, I never had a banana. Buster got me to try a banana for the first time.
What's up with you guys back east? Sinclair won't eat strawberries. I don't understand this fear, like fruit thing. What's going on?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but there's more people than you would think that are like that.
Huh.
Yeah. Like I didn't have. Didn't have a banana until I was 18.
Wow.
Didn't have Mexican food till I was 21 with Chris.
Damn.
And then I didn't eat pineapple until my honeymoon in Maui.
Oh my goodness.
I'll give you pineapple. I mean, pineapple is one of my favorites, but it's not like everywhere. But like bananas and strawberries, that's bananas, bro.
I like strawberries and I ate those early, but bananas, they were mushy. Didn't like the consistency, I guess. But then,
the texture maybe.
I tried them. Buster, I gave me one. I had 2 bites, hated it. But then when I was like in my mid-20s, I started devouring them, loving them. But when we went to Maui for our honeymoon, and pineapple was so good that I brought 2 huge cases of them back with us.
I love it.
I told my wife, I was like, she's like, they have pineapples in the United States. Like, you don't have to bring them back. I was like, I want these from here. They're the best ones I've ever had. And she's like, you idiot. Those are the only ones I've ever had. So,
oh man, they're so good. They have the white ones. They're like, there's like different ones and they're all like really good. I can't wait. We're going to Hawaii in January. So it's my favorite place. I love being out there.
We went out twice.
Whoa, slow it down.
Big Island one time. And then we went to Maui.
Okay. Did you hook up with Chris Sen at all?
No, that was probably, I think it was before he was out there actually.
Okay. If you ever go back, if you go back, he's the dude. He's got the night diving with manta rays tours.
Oh, wow.
Him and his family do, and it's really cool stuff. I suggest awesome. If you are able to do it. What else? Oh yeah. What about Street Howard? We got to talk about Street Howard.
Is that real?
You got some clips.
Yeah. That was like I said, I didn't learn to street skate first. Kind of was vert boy, but there was a point in time, a couple different times in skating where I was either, because I went to college for a while, like even when I first turned pro, I was living in South Carolina still, and I was going to school, and did that for a few years. So there were times where I'd be, living at my parents' house and there wouldn't be a ramp. So then it was, got to do something. I'd go somewhere on the weekends. I'd go to Wilmington, skate with Chet or whatever, go to Charleston, drive down to Tampa. But in the, all the in between times, I was always street skating. And then with Planet Earth too, let's see, there's probably like 93, 94. I'd start going out. This is before I ever moved to Tampa. I'd fly out to California and I'd stay, usually stay with like Jeff Taylor.
Shout out.
Ty Evans lived with Jeff at that time. So, Felix was out there.
Shout out.
Sometimes they all lived in the same Cardiff apartments. A bunch of those guys, Richard Angelides,
shout out,
Jason King,
shout out,
all those guys. So I'd fly out there so I could skate ramps, but then I'd be, hanging out with those guys, or we'd go on trips. And so, yeah, I'm in the van, there ain't no ramp, and I just start skating it, and went up to Vancouver a couple times and skated there, filmed a few things.
What was your favorite thing you got on wax, or maybe didn't film, but you did it?
Well, I frontside tail slid Hubba Hideout once.
Yeah.
That's a life hammer.
It's either like a Form 1 or like something on, like it was in a video. I can't remember which one. It's been so long. But yeah, went there, and I had been street skating a lot at that time. I wanted to do frontside tail slide, fakie, but for some reason it wasn't working. I was bleeding all over the place, sliding on the bricks, and coming out forward worked. So that was cool. And then another cool one was in Augusta, in my hometown. Just went out skating with some of my buddies, and one friend of mine just pulled his truck up on the sidewalk in front of the Civic Center. It's actually the James Brown Arena now, because James Brown's from the Augusta area. And just kind of one night after hanging out with everybody at this one little skate house, we went out and I nose slid. I think it's like a 9-stair big round silver rail at the time. That was in one of the Planet Earth videos, I believe. So yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff, like surprise myself every once in a while.
So let's talk a little bit about, vert skating, because this is all kind of around, I think, the same time. Vert skating kind of just, as they say, dies, right? And you see like Gator's demise over it. You see like a lot of dudes, we always laughed. The dudes that drive to the vert ramp, they take their board out of the car and carry it to the vert ramp, because they can't even like skate on the street at all somehow, but they can do like 540s on vert. You're like, you can't even like just push down the street. What the hell is going on? So like there was a lot of dudes that when vert died, those dudes were just, there's no chance. You can't do a slappy, you can't ollie a curb, you're done. You're like, you're like worse than the first, and that was like, to us, it was like, we didn't understand it. But from your perspective, you're skating with a lot of street dudes, you're doing a bunch of different things, and you held on to whatever it was you were doing. You stuck with it, even with like you said, like the paychecks are going down and stuff. Like that wasn't the initial like peace out for you.
Yeah, I say this I don't say it all the time, but I've always thought it. I remember back, and there was never a point when I skated I never thought in my head, man, I want to be pro. I have to be pro. I have to make a living at this. I just skated, and like I said, in the backyard by myself with a couple people, skated ramps. So I really liked the ramps. And then I started, I street skated, and then I got sponsored. And then I was lucky enough to go to those contests and win that contest, turn pro, and started making money. And back then I was like, well, I'll just do this and I'll still go to school. I went to school for took some just general stuff for a while until I figured out I went to school for mechanical engineering. But it was like, but I'm going to keep skating as much as I can, because I'm actually making a little bit of money out of it. And if there ever comes a day where it makes more sense to skate, I'll stop school because I can always go back. And then, that was around like finally in 93-ish, I was like, all right, I think the time's coming. I'm going to take some time off school. So I took off a semester that turned into 2 semesters. And then that's when I go out and stay with the Planet Earth guys and we travel around, and money's starting to get a little bit better, but a little bit better is in like, instead of $300 a month, I'm getting $500 a month. And then it really sort of took off in like 95, but that's around the time that vert skating finally came back. Like you're saying, like, there's guys that only want to skate vert. That's like Mike Frazier. At the time, he would just go anywhere he had to go to skate a ramp. Luckily at that time, they had got like Paul Zitzer,
shout out,
had moved to Tampa and built a ramp. And they had it in a warehouse, like a private ramp. Everybody sort of pitched in each month to pay the rent. And they had that ramp, and it lasted a while. Like Daytona was still there, and then the ramp, they closed it down or whatever. So Mike and those guys, they were still making it happen. And then that ramp got torn down, and Mike would just drive. And that's around, I think that's around the time that Gainesville ramp was up there. So he'd drive up a couple hours a day, like he's doing now. I mean, he's still doing it. He drives to Phil Hajjal's ramp. Yeah. But anyway, like that's how everybody was just doing it and surviving. When I was, I was in school, and a weekend would come, or a long weekend would happen, or even Thanksgiving, or, whatever. I spent Thanksgiving dinner at a Miami Subs in Tampa like 3 years in a row.
Are you out of your mind?
Eating a turkey sandwich. Every time I had 3 days off where a 5-hour drive made sense, I go to Tampa and skate that ramp. And so that's what everybody was doing. And luckily I could connect, do the street skate in between, because it was fun. And then for Tampa, that ramp got torn down. They put it in storage. And then that's when Brian started trying to figure out how to open a skate park. Like They already had the ramp. It was in storage. And Paul said, like, if you can find a place to put it, it's yours. So that's when he started working on it. And I think they opened officially, I think in 95, or 96 is kind of the year that they said they really got going. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of how it was. Like I said, I'd go up, see Chet. Reggie Barnes had built a vert ramp behind the Eastern distribution, like just for the guys, for the guys that skated there, that worked there. So there was always something, Okay. It might be a lot of miles, but there was always something.
And is it true that your last contest you skated in was kind of like the end of it for you, where it was raining and the guys were splitting the money, wanting to split the money and stuff?
Yeah. That was, I don't know, probably 2003-ish or something like that. It was one of the Vans Triple Crown contest. It was in New Jersey. And money had kind of already gotten in, all the energy drinks and this, that. The prize money was getting a big deal. And it sort of had been building. I don't know. I started to feel sort of stagnant as far as my progression, I guess, personally. And every contest we went to, the same 10 guys argued about the same 5 things, or somebody was mad at the judges for this, or somebody was mad at the judges for that. Everybody's yelling at the contest organizers, whether it's the Bostics or, whoever it is, the do tour people, or I actually didn't really do many of the do tours, but so it got real sort of monotonous, I guess. It was the same thing every week, every weekend or whatever. And we were in New Jersey. It was super hot. It was raining on and off. Everybody's saying like, we should just do a demo and split the money. And, this guy's screaming at that guy, Tuss was trying to fight Gentry, and they're all screaming at Neil, and the Bostics you guys suck, blah, blah, blah. And I just remember having to go at like 8 o'clock in the morning and take a dump in a porta potty with full pads. It's 97 degrees.
Yeah, dog.
And then it rained again, and everybody's back at the hotel. And at the time I was working for Woodward in California, like helping them get the thing started. helping the skate program. And I was just like, you know what, guys, I'm done.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I can't do it anymore. And so I flew back and left, and that was the last contest I ever skated.
Oh, damn.
It got to that point. Like,
yeah.
And again, but most of it probably had to do with the fact that I just didn't feel like I didn't want to feel like I was milking it. And I kind of felt like I already had milked it for a while. So, and by that point, Planet Earth had quit making boards a couple years before. Everything was starting. I think I was real lucky to live through that part of vert skating dying and then vert skating coming back, at least in popularity. And I got to do that with like real endemic skateboard company sponsors only. So I felt real lucky to have been able to do that and make some decent money and, bought a house and, kind of set myself up a little bit. Like I definitely didn't make tons of money, but, if I always look back, like I didn't have to go hustle for some kind of weird drink sponsor or do, crazy weird demos and that kind of thing. I mean, I did plenty of demos and I, whatever, but it felt good that, I made my living off the skateboard industry, so that was just the time to go, I guess.
Okay. Were you at that contest in Vegas where Thrasher did it with Boost Mobile and they had the vert ramp in the street contest? Yes.
It was cool. It was good. So fun. It was fun. I was stoked to be at that one. I didn't do that great, but it was cool to be there. It was a good thing for sure. I was psyched to be invited because it was invite only.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite ones? Did you do like all the Europe ones and stuff? Was there something that like sticks out to you still to this day that like that was just a blast or like it was the best skating or whatever for whatever reason? Yeah, there were that Lausanne contest. I was there. I went to 3 of them. It happened every other year. I can't remember what the years were, but there was 3 different ones. Yeah, that one was great. And then like the Munster ones, there was, of course, the infamous boycott year or whatever. Mm-hmm. That was kind of weird. I almost got strangled by one of the monster German security guards because I was selling the board.
Oh, that was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my whole life. People were selling stuff and I was one of the people. The guy picked me up basically by my neck and then Mike V was right there and Greg Carroll was around and it all got real heated and stuff. But anyway, back to the fun ones. Like Germany was cool because they had that the Munster Bowl, the big round bowl, the keyhole. Uh-huh. So that was super fun. And they had the snake run that was behind it that went downhill. Oh yeah. And I remember being there one year skating it with Wade Spire and stuff.
Shout out.
Was carving around it and figured out you carve all the way down it because loop around that bottom one, then you can work it all the way back up. So I remember that year was super fun. Filmed some tricks in the Munster Bowl for like 4-1 and stuff. And but yeah, those Lausanne contests were awesome. Ended up traveling around with Lance Dawes in between all the contests a couple years.
Shout out.
The only cover that I had is basically just my feet, my wheels, but it was a slap cover. Yeah. Lance was like, "Hey, I've got an idea," and he had the whole picture in his head. He's like, "There's the ramp in Amsterdam under the bridge, backside Smith, and so we went there. I think I didn't even skate for very long. He's like, "I'll do it right here." And we did it, and that was it. He's like, "That's what I wanted." So it was cool. It traveled around with him, and there was one year where we all ended up on the train with Jake and the Hell Ride crew. I just somehow got in there for a few days, going down to Marseille. So that was cool. I was used to traveling around with the Planet Earth guys, like carrying big wheelie bags and stuff. And then I had already learned that you get the backpack and you carry just what you need. That's a faux pas. Yeah. Travel, but it was cool. Light, live large, as Nuge says. Yeah, but it was cool because they're like, we're going to Marseille. Like, we're going to change here, change there. Like, nobody waited on anybody. And there was that particular just train ride. I think there's like 15 or 20 of us. And there were a couple times where we switched trains and people just disappear. They wouldn't make it. So you lose them. They show up a day later or something. Yeah. So that was cool just to do it that way. And I remember we went, Tom Boyle,
shout out,
and Darren Mendito were with us then too.
Okay.
And they're like, you know, I remember Jake and everybody's like, oh yeah, we know this hotel, we'll get rooms, like blah blah blah. But when you get to the bowl, don't sit anything down. Like, you know, if you see the guys on the mopeds, like get out of the way, or like, you know, I just told you the whole rundown.
Everybody's all, hey.
Yeah, we went down there and that was super cool. That was kind of the first time I'd known Jake and I'd met him, but that was the first time I was really around him a bunch.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Was P-Stone with him?
Yeah. Preston was there. And I'd already met Preston on the East Coast, and we spent a lot of time at like Woodward and stuff. So he was, you know, he'd come over with, you know, whoever it was from the area and come out and stay at Woodward. And then everybody go out at night, just raise hell. And we pretty much destroyed this bar down the road from Woodward a couple miles. Like there was like 4 inches of standing water, and the bartender guy that we knew came to camp the next day. It was like with his tail between his legs, because he kind of instigated it getting crazy and just asked us for money. Like, hey, the hotel's going to fire me if I don't get like $600 for damages today. So everybody's just giving in whatever they could, because we didn't pay for anything and just destroyed the place.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, he was eating like pickled pig's feet and all sorts of stuff.
Were you at that contest that him and Tom Boyle skated doubles? I think it was maybe X Games.
Yeah. I think it was X Games in San Diego.
So sick.
Yeah. I think that would have been 98. Yeah, totally remember that.
Oh man, that dude lived a great life. I miss him so much, but Darren and I talk about it a lot, about like just how fortunate we were to like spend all the time in Miles and all that stuff. And I would say equally, he was fortunate to just live he put in the work to do it, but he lived an amazing life, you know, like Preston killed it. So
yeah, I was in Switzerland with him one time, just traveling between the contests. And he made, like everybody always says, he knew exactly where to go, who to talk to, what to do, never missed a beat.
You ever hit that taco shop around the corner? You ever hit that one?
Yeah.
He just had shit like that no matter where you were. Like you're in the most remote place, you'd be like, you ever been to the burrito shop down the street? It's got a good jukebox, Schmitty. I'll be like, what?
Yeah, I've been there 9 times.
Yeah, I got this one. Come on. Yeah. Well, shit. Did you ever? So the Slap was the only cover you got.
Yeah.
I gotta dig that one up. See, Dawes is awesome. I love Lance.
Yeah. No, it was cool traveling around with him. He came out to Florida a couple times, and we went on some little trips around. Like Zitzer was with us.
Yeah.
Like Paul and Matt Milligan, and I think maybe Dave Duran was on one time. Like came to Tampa, and then we drove all around south and like just dragging. Well, Paul was a little more street guy than me, but yeah, it was just a random mix of people, but everybody got along real good, and it was super fun.
I think I was there the first day Lance smoked a cigarette, and we always laughed because Lance was kind of straight edge for a long time.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden now he's just a chain smoker like that guy, and you're like, Lance, I remember, like, it's funny to watch the evolution of these guys.
Well, I remember when Chet Childress was like completely straight edge.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything. And I was in Wilmington. One of the local guys was about to move to San Francisco. And everybody's throwing a party. I just happened to be up there or whatever. And Chet and his girlfriend at the time came to the party. And I'm sure Bob was there and some other people, and everybody's hanging out, and somebody cooked some weed brownies. And nobody, they were out there cooling off or whatever. Nobody told Chet. So he went in the kitchen or something. Everybody's drinking. He's not drinking, doesn't drink at all. I think his girlfriend did. So she was drinking and wasn't going to be able to drive. He goes in there. They had already cut him up or whatever. He gets 2 huge brownies and just devours them. Didn't have any idea. And comes back in. He sits down. He's like, "Hey man, those brownies are really good. Whoever made them?" And all the surf guys from Wilmington were like, "Oh man, Chet." They told him, and he's like, "I don't feel anything. I'm fine." Half hour later, like, "I don't feel anything. I'm good. I think, me and my girlfriend, we're going to leave." It was raining pretty hard, so he left, and everybody's like, "Man, I hope he makes it back." Yeah, like when's it gonna hit him? He said he drove like a couple miles. We saw him the next day, like middle of the day. Said he drove a couple miles and things started to feel kind of weird, so he pulled over in a parking lot, and his girlfriend was like passed out. He said he sat in the parking lot until he was imagining that the water was leaking through the roof onto him. And he said he sat there for hours and ended up like falling asleep and woke up the next morning and was like, his girlfriend was okay to drive home. So, yeah. And then after that, it was, he wasn't straight edge Chet anymore.
Next thing you know, he's Ludacrux.
Yeah, exactly.
What's up, Luke? What's up, Marcus? Marcus.
There's painted mattresses everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, true or false? You had a lizard named Mike Sinclair.
I did.
How the hell do you know?
I did. Yeah. I had one named Sarge that was for Chris Carter. And then I had one that was named Mike Sinclair. Yeah. Green iguana.
And was it your dad had a lathe and would take the wheels and make them smaller?
Yeah. My dad had a lathe, and it was when wheels were starting to get smaller. So he made me a little chock that you could put in there and mount the wheel on it, and I could just cut them down, cut the flat spots out of them, reshape them. They really were basically new wheels at that point. Yeah. So I did that. I even, as trucks got narrower, I would knock the axles out of going like the magnesium Super Pro 3s.
Yeah.
And cut them down just a little bit because boards are getting narrower. Cut them down a little bit and then drive the axle back in and shorten it and rethread it so that it was, matched up perfect.
Oh, man. What was like the worst injury you've ever had?
There's skateboard injuries and then there's other injuries. But skateboard injury, probably the worst I ever had was I actually just told somebody about this the other day. When I was living in Tampa, there was going to be a demo. I was going to do a vert demo with Tony Hawk at this contest. It was an amateur street contest, and we were going to do a vert demo. Me, him, and that guy Rodney Mead from Orlando.
Yeah.
So some friends, like my girlfriend, my buddy Jonah, and roommate Alan Russell. I don't know if you ever met Alan, but probably have.
Yeah.
We're all going to drive over. They're going to skate the contest. I was going to do a demo. So we drive from Tampa to Vero Beach. It's basically straight across Florida from the West Coast to the East Coast. And we get there, and the whole setup is in like a school parking lot. And I'm walking around talking to people. I meet Chad Foreman, Jamie's buddy that worked at Black Box. I meet Chad Foreman, meet all these people, talking to people and stuff. The ramp's there. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna pad up and take a couple runs just to get used to the ramp. And so I pad up, probably took 3 or 4 runs, dropped in, did a frontside air, and completely locked up. And landed on just slammed to the flat, landed on the left side of my head. But apparently when I hit my head, it got knocked out cold. My brain shook inside, and later to find out that I had a blood clot on the right-hand side where it pulled, your brain shakes around. Because, of course, I'm wearing just a Pro-Tech, which is like a Home Depot bucket with foam in it.
Yeah.
But I was out cold, snoring, like arms all twisted up behind me. So they called the ambulance. The ambulance is the hospital is like a mile away. So it got there really quick. And the funny thing later is Tony, I guess, had gotten to the airport and gotten the town car to bring him over. He said the first thing he saw is he walks over and looks on the flat, and I'd look up at him and I was just like, Tony, this ramp sucks. And then they put me on the thing and take me away. But I spent the night in the hospital. They had to actually move me to another hospital because they were worried that they might have to drill a hole to let the pressure off. But fortunately, it quit bleeding. And then I was in the hospital overnight. And what's funny is Schaefer had come over to the contest thing. He came and picked me up from the hospital, and we went back to where the ramp and everything was located. And I got out, and I had amnesia I didn't even remember the 2 days before. Whoa. But I had dreamt an idea of what everything was like. And I got there and I was like, this isn't where I was yesterday. He's like, no, this is. I was like, no. It's not the same place. The ramp was over here. And I had dreamt up this whole other story.
Whoa.
But yeah, it was really weird. And they told me not to skate for about a month. And the doctor, the neurosurgeon guy that I talked to, he's like, hey, you hit this spot and then it was bleeding over here. You're going to have some short-term memory loss. And I was like, what do you mean? What does that really mean? He goes, well, you won't be able to remember stuff, but it's like things that you're accustomed to won't feel normal. So I didn't exactly know what it meant, but when I got to where I could skate again, I knew what tricks I could do, but I couldn't remember how they felt.
Whoa.
To do them. So it's like, okay, I'm going to try to do a backside tail slide on the ramp. I'd have to try it 3 or 4 or 5 times to retrain myself how to do it.
So like the muscle memory is gone?
It was kind of like that. Like, yeah. I mean, and he said that's basically, sort of what it would be. Like, he's like, you'll know what you know how to do it.
Uh-huh.
Your body still knows how, but you can't make the connection for a little while. You have to reconnect those things.
What a trip.
Yeah, so it was really weird. And the first week after I got hurt, I'd kind of forget things like in the middle of doing something. Like I remember trying to drive to the park just to go hang out and watch people skate. And I'd get halfway to the park and then turn around and drive home. And, I remember at the same time I went and bought I knew I was going to be sitting around because I was hurt. I went to buy a PlayStation like back in the day and bought a PlayStation, a couple games, went home, played it for a few days, took it, unhooked it, put it in the TV console, closed it up and forgot that I even owned it. It was like a month and a half later, I opened it up to find like a movie or something. I found this thing in there and the receipt was still there. And I looked at when I bought it and I was like, holy shit. Like I didn't even remember doing that. So it was really weird things like that.
Huh. Okay.
And then it was like 5 months later, skating at Tampa. Apparently nobody was watching, looped out, landed on my head again.
Oh man.
And of course I was kind of out of it. I got mad at Frazier because he couldn't tell me what I fell on. I was mad at everyone because I couldn't remember. And that was probably the worst like that. Other than that, skating, I broke my collarbone another time. Got knocked out. But those I could definitely tell you kind of got depressed and stuff after them. Just from the head trauma. I think I made out okay. I know a lot of people have had a lot of them, but and then other than that, I crashed on a BMX bike at Woodward. Crashed on top of the bike and the pedal hit me in the ribs. And then my ribs poked through my liver.
Oh.
So I got up and I'd broken my ribs before I got up, tried to walk around. Thought like, oh man, broke my ribs. And then I kind of passed out because I wasn't breathing good and I was starting to internally bleed.
Yeah.
But I got up, I made it up to they had trainers there, up in the gym thing, started talking to the trainers. And then there was an emergency surgeon that was there that was friends with the owners or whatever. He started checking me out. I was like, yeah, you might have bruised your liver or something. So we're going to get you into the hospital. We'll take you in the car because it'll be quicker. But then he called down to the Woodward office and said, hey, Brian's coming down there. He's internally bleeding. Get him there as fast as you can. We don't have time to call a helicopter. And then he called the hospital and told them all that. So once I got there, it was like a half an hour and I was in surgery and they went and stitched it all up. And so that was my worst.
What's your technique for broken ribs? Because I just did that about 3 or 4 years ago and I haven't broken any other bones, but that was so gnarly. Like you can't sleep, you can't walk, you can't laugh. If you sneeze, you're dead. Like it's so gnarly. Like, is there any technique you have to like try to help? Like, did you put a pillow thing around you or do you do anything special or how you deal with it?
You really can't do a lot. I know back in the day, they used to try and like wrap your rib cage, but that's not good because then you can build up fluid. But breaking them, I've broken some ribs and I've bruised ribs. And the bruised ribs last a little longer because you bruise all the soft tissue in between them. And that moves in and out every time you breathe. Like the bones probably actually heal a little bit faster. But whenever I've bruised mine good, I've put heat on them like kind of before and after skating. Like once you get to where you feel like it hurts, but I could maybe skate.
Yeah.
I'd put a heating pad on it to loosen up all the, you don't want to do that originally because it'd be better to put ice on. Like they say,
it took like 3 months before I was even like comfortable. I think where I was like, okay, I think I can but like I said, like you get a sneeze coming and you're just holding your body like, no, it's so gnarly.
When I had that surgery, I had 2 broken ribs and then they cut through my abdomen and I had like 25 staples and two tubes coming out because they had to catch the old blood that was still draining. And I remember, I was at Woodward and they told me you can't fly, you can't drive. So you got to stay put for a while. And fortunately the people at Woodward, they were like, you just stay here. Like, cause it was the only other option I had would have been to go back to Florida to my apartment, sit on the couch. And then of course I had all these bills to pay from going to the hospital. And they were like, yeah, just stay here. You can help with the skate program. But I went back to camp and I really didn't do much of anything for about a week. And then I remember, this is kind of getting into what you're saying with the sneezing. All I wanted to do was leave camp and go get pizza because I'd been on I was in the ICU for like a week.
Yeah.
And I got back to camp. So I laid in bed for another week. And then somebody's like, yeah, let's go to State College and we'll get some pizza at this place I like. Went in there, ate a bunch of pizza, came back to camp that night. And just because I've been so wrecked for so long, my body couldn't take it. And I threw up all night.
Oh,
so it was
so much pain.
Oh man, it was terrible. But I think I was like laying on the, like squeezing my ribs with a pillow and just barfing all over the bathroom.
That's like, I felt like if I put pressure on it when I sneezed, it would like kind of hold it in place enough to not rattle it or something. Mine wasn't broken. Mine was fractured, but I mean, I don't know.
But with that, you probably bruised all that soft tissue. That's probably why it took so long. The soft tissue. It's like they always say, like it's better to break it than to sprain it, with your ankle. But I think it's kind of the same way with your ribs. Like it's better that bruising takes so long. And then every time you irritate it by, whatever. I broke I broke my collarbone one time and then I broke it again another time. That was a bad one just because you move your arm at all and the 2 ends are scraping together. And like sleeping, you can't sleep on either side. You have to like prop your arm up. The second time they put a plate on it, which made it at least stable and it didn't hurt as bad. But the ribs are rough for sure.
Okay. You've skated with probably, most of the best skaters out there. You've judged some skating. Who are you going to build Mount Rushmore for vert skaters? Who are the 4 guys that need to have their fucking names and heads up there?
All right. Well, Tony Hawk, because of course he's the Michael Jordan of skateboarding, I guess, ambassador and done the most for skating. Or for the we all know. I'd say for me, Chris Miller, just because of the way he skated. He was retired as a pro at like 21. And then he came back and he was better, 15 years later.
Yeah.
And I just remember later in the years at Planet Earth, like he was kind of retired and he was running the company. And then I'd come out to town and he'd come skate and he'd say like, oh, I've been surfing a bunch. I haven't skated vert in probably about a year. And he still killed it. And I would ask him, I'd say to him, like, how can you possibly not skate for that long and come skate and rip? He goes, I just don't think about anything other than the last time I skated. He's like, I just go out and just think of that last time. This is just, it's like the next day. So him, I'd say Mark Gonzalez, just because of all that he's done, what he helped develop in skating, and he ripped on vert too, still skates bowls, whatever. That was the first board I had. So there's 3.
Yeah, that's sick.
And then if to keep it, focused toward the ramps, I'd say the new one needs to be Jimmy Wilkins.
Yeah. I mean, he's incredible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what would you compare him to? Would you say he's got some Remy in him? He's got like some Crumb. He's got that frontside ollie that's just like maybe some Steve Clark. Like, who are some of the dudes that from the earlier generation that you're like, you put some of this, add a little pepper, throw this, and there's Jimmy Wilkins.
Yeah, there's definitely Crumb. For frontside ollies, there's Crumb, there's Steve Clark. Yeah, maybe a little Remy in there. But then the thing that really that I see is what he does, how he folds his feet and his legs on backside ollies. Like it's different. It's nobody's done it that way. And it's obviously working. It's working really good. Frontside, like I can see it because I always did frontside ollies and I like to do them. And I mean, alley-oop, he puts a little of that backside into frontside alley-oop, the leg. It's all in that leg tuck, the way his knees tuck and his feet roll over. That's different. And it's definitely the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Like, everybody else uses their feet, more the bottom of their feet, I think. Or the side of their front foot a little bit to hook the board. But he's using the side of his back foot and that back knee that tucks in. The inside of his back foot. And it's amazing.
Yeah,
to watch.
Jimmy
I didn't really I didn't skate, because when I was still before I moved back east, I was out there and I wouldn't skate vert as much. So I got to kind of see him from the sidelines. I didn't skate with him a lot, but man, it's really incredible to watch.
We love you, Jimmy. Big shout out.
Shout out.
What's the best thing that you've been there for? Like, I was there when Schaefer tried the loop and fucking went to the hospital, or I was there when Danny Way jumped the Great Wall of China. Like, what's the thing that you were there and you're like, Jesus Christ, I'm watching this live?
I guess I saw when Danny was jumping out of the helicopter in Vegas the first time.
Yeah.
That was, that hadn't been done.
Was that planned, like where everyone knew it was going to happen, or were you guys all skating and then all of a sudden a helicopter shows up and you're like,
no, it was planned. Yeah.
You knew though. Okay.
Yeah. We knew because, we knew it was coming. So
Luke
we kind
shot
of got
the photo from his hotel balcony, like super. He bought this like 800 lens and adapters, and he was all ready for it. It was
because that was at the Hard Rock, but on top of the parking garage.
Okay.
Yeah, so the same Hard Rock where the Boost Mobile contest was, but up on So that one was just crazy. I mean, because you're out there. Everybody had to kind of get away from the ramp because the helicopter blades are spinning and there's, dirt and dust flying around. But so there was that. And I mean, I was there at Tampa when Schaefer did the loop. And that I had always in my mind, and, anytime thinking of loop, I was like, I just got this feeling that I would be the dude that just looped out and just went flying, Unfortunately I was like, I'm not interested. Like there was never a day where I was like, I think I want to do that. I always had this vision of it. And then Brian fortified that image that I didn't really want to try it ever. Yeah.
Has he ever tried it again after that? No,
not that I know of.
Okay. I got to ask him about that. Yeah. What else is, I know you're doing a lot of mountain biking and stuff. Did you ever reach out to the good folks at Fox? I think you were in Air Raid video skating. I was wondering if you maybe got a connection with them for biking and stuff.
I did. Got into biking because I tore my knee up one time, got into it. But there was a point in time, I can't remember how, I think it was at Woodward. It was at Woodward. I was friends with some of the BMX guys, and John Fox, one of the sons of, the founder, he was out there and I met him and just started talking to him, sort of hit it off. He skates. And he was like, yeah, man, if you ever want any stuff, just give me a shout. So I actually used to send him like Planet Earth boards.
Oh, cool.
And then he'd send me stuff too. So yeah. And that was around that time. They were super into Wade.
and Salman. And then they're putting that video together. And I was a bunch of their riders, their BMX riders I was really good friends with. So that's kind of how that came together. And I still
Wait at Burnside is so sick. It's like filmed like 16 mil or something. Do you think it's essential to have those? I just learned about these. I got a bike too. And they were telling me for jumping and stuff that you get this thing that you can control with your handlebars to make the seat go up and down.
That's a good thing, especially if you're jumping, they call them dropper posts. I mean, modern day mountain biking, if you're going to go out and if you are going to jump anything, it just gets the seat out of the way. When you were talking about the vert days, how it was, how hard it was to keep skating vert all the time. There was a point where there wasn't a ramp in Tampa. I didn't have anything near me. I don't think Neil Hendricks had anything really near him. And there's a guy named Jeff Reeves that was skated for New Deal. He was amateur, like mini ramp guy. We all decided hey, we're going to drive out to California. Neil and Jeff will go in one car. Me and Mike will go in my car. So we drove out, and it was when Tony still had the ramp at his house out in Fallbrook. And so Mike was on Birdhouse. Neil was on New Deal. I was on Planet Earth, kind of like 94, I think. And Blockhead was still around, and the Bowl, and Encinitas YMCA was there. So we went out there we're going to be there for 3 weeks. And we get out, and Tony's like, hey, you can stay at my house. I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks, so just stay at the house, because Mike rode for Birdhouse. So we go out there, skating, doing all our stuff. And then during that trip, Chris was like, hey, why don't you, Mike, and Neil come in? I want to talk to you guys about something. And we're like, all right, this is a little weird, because they didn't ride for him or whatever. So we all go, and we go into Chris's office. It's like going to the principal's office, and we're sitting down. He's like, I want to talk to you guys about these stupid little wheels that you ride. And we were like, what? He goes, you guys are riding 52 millimeter wheels on vert ramps. And we're like, everybody's like, well, it's easier for the quick disasters or, blunt slides or this and that. We're coming up with all these excuses. He goes, this is ridiculous. He's like, it's you're skating vert. You need to be going higher. Sure, you're doing all these tricks, but everybody's airs are getting lower and lower and lower. And we were all like, yeah, you're probably right. But we literally were all riding 52 millimeter wheels or smaller.
Yeah.
And he relayed into us hard, gave us a guilt trip. And then we all, we left. The trip was, kept going on the trip. Nobody made any changes yet. But I remember when I got back east, I was at Wilmington at Reggie's ramp skating with Chet. And I went from 52s and I put 58s on one day. And I honestly could go 3 feet higher instantly. And and then I think Mike put bigger wheels on a little bit later, and he's like, I think we were all kind of like, Chris was right.
Yeah.
So that was my Chris the principal story. At that same time, at that, not maybe not the same day, but at that ramp in Wilmington, I always tried 540s, and Chris was like, yeah, man, 540s are tough. It's just a mental game. You just got to figure it out. And once you see your landing, you can do it. And I tried him, and he's always trying to get me to do them. And my dad too, when I was younger, or even when I was living at the house, he's like, have you learned the McTwist yet? Because he'd seen the Bones videos. I was like, no, I haven't yet. I'm still trying. He's like, if you don't ever learn that, you're never going to win a contest. And so there was a day at Wilmington with Chet and everybody. I think Pete Thompson was up there. I think Pete might've been filming with my video camera or something, or maybe Bob, but I was trying them. And then I just made one, and I don't know what I did different, but I tried them. I carved, and I didn't tuck my head like McGill. So I was carved real far, but I did it 5 foot, maybe 5-6 foot. First one I ever made. Popped out on the other wall. Had no idea what was different.
Grabbing indie, right? Or mute?
I grabbed mute.
Okay.
But then I learned it better and got a little more consistent. But after that trip, I drove home, and I was like, Dad, I did it. So I plugged in the camera. I played it back. I showed it to him, and he just goes, that's not a McTwist. He's like, that's not like that Mike McGill guy. Played it in slow motion, counted it. That's not it. So yeah, it was funny. He could never win.
You better leave this shit in here. Don't be this is negative or not. This is life.
So we're at Tony's. We were there for a few weeks. That was kind of the first time Tuss showed up for the first time. As like a little 16-year-old kid, he skated Tony's ramp for a couple days. Wouldn't see him again for years. He came back later. But Neil and Jeff went off to do something. Mike said, I need to be home within 3 days for my mom's birthday. So we were getting ready to go. Tony had a cat that had kittens. And then the mom cat got hit by a car. So he had all these kittens. And Mike's like, I'll take one of these home and give it to my mom, for her birthday. And then we also found Mike caught a California king snake at Tony's in his yard or something. He's like, I'm going to take this back and sell it to a pet stop, because, illegal transporting of reptiles. Yeah. But so he had and then we were going to get ready. And it was like the day before we're getting ready to drive back. Tony's came back in town. He's like, hey, we're going to go up to Six Flags with have you ever heard of the band Netzer Ebb? It's like I forget what, I don't know, like electronic band. I can't really pinpoint it, but these guys from this strange music band we didn't meet, they were all going to go to Six Flags. So me and Mike are like, yeah, we'll go. And then when we get back tonight, we're going to leave. And we're going to drive to the Grand Canyon overnight. And then we're going to watch the sun come up because we've never been to the Grand Canyon. And then we're going to drive all the way to Florida. So it was an ambitious thing. We went to Six Flags. We hung out, road rides and everything, come back to Tony's, pack up the car, get the snake, get the kitten, get in my Honda Civic. And then Mike's like, I'll drive from here to the Grand Canyon. I'll just drink a bunch of coffee. And he had the giant big gulp mug, like big as your lap. Yeah. We drove the whole way there. We got there probably 20 minutes before the sun came up. No way. It was super romantic. We're sitting on the hood of the car at the edge of the Grand Canyon.
That's the shit that we live for.
The sun comes up. We watch it. We look at each other and we're like, okay, let's get going to Florida. Mike asked me, he says, are you good to drive? And I am fine. I slept the whole way here. It's like a full night's sleep. Let's go. So we get in. I start driving, and I'm driving. I think it's about 30 minutes south. There's the hotel with the Flintstones or something. Yeah. Outside on the right. Yeah. And there, I remember there was a gas station with a garage on the left, and we're just driving, and I was wide awake. And then I wake up going 65 miles an hour in the dirt next to the road. Whoa. Like, how when you get tired and you start nodding out? Yeah. I never nodded out. I just completely went to sleep. Whoa. And we're it's like 65 next to the road. It's 2 lanes, one this way, one that way. I'm just blah, 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 blah. Mike wakes up. He's like, what's going on? I fell asleep. And I'm trying to get the car back on the road, and I get the driver's side wheels on. Yeah. And then it spins out, and we spun 1.5 turns. So we did a 540 in the road and went off the other side and like bottom out as we went off the edge, like kind of in the ditch. Yep. And the car's facing the other way. And we're just sitting there looking at each other like, oh my God. And I jump out and I run around to the front and I look, and the hood's popped up. The bumper's kind of hanging down, and there's just coolant, or, the radiator fluid, the coolant just pouring out of the bottom of it. I was like, Mike, get back in. There was a garage right up the road. So we get back in, it cranked somehow, and we drove back up, and I pull up in front of the garage door, this gas station garage, and just turn it off, and it just shuts off, steam everywhere. And it's like 7 a.m. I'm just shaking, like just apologizing to Mike. I'm so sorry, Mike. I could have killed us. Like, we almost died. And, he's still sitting there freaking out. He's got a cat in his shirt. We're looking in the back, checking on the snake. Snake's okay. And then we waited. I called my insurance to figure out what to do. And they're, asked me all these questions like, oh, well, you can get towed. So we sat in the garage, we waited. A guy comes in. There's a tow truck inside the garage. So we're like, we think we'll be all right. He has to get somebody to come cover for him. And then he hooks us up and we start driving. And he's like, yeah, it's about 55, 60 miles to Flagstaff. That's where you need to go. There's a Honda dealership. So we're going. We've been driving maybe 5-10 minutes. And before we got in the truck, Mike's like, we can't keep the snake. Like, we just got to let it go. I was like, Mike, we can take it. Like, we can get it there. I know you want to sell it. He's like, no, he just lets it go. So he's already mad at me because, we almost died and he had to get rid of the snake. Yeah. And we get in that truck and we're driving and he's got the cat inside his flannel and the cat starts meowing, just meow, 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 over and over and over. And he's like, hey, I think he's hungry to the driver. You think he can pull over so we can get the food out of the car? He goes, yeah, hold on. He's pulling over, it takes a second with the car. Pulls over, Mike opens the door, and you just hear, and he just pulls his shirt out and goes, oh no, the cat just fully diarrhea all in his shirt. We're just sitting there, it smelled so bad. And the driver's laughing, and Mike's just like, we go back, get a bottle of water. We're holding up the cat, trying to wash it off. He changes clothes. And we get back in. He feeds the cat. And then we get in. We drive to Flagstaff, take the car in. We had to stay in Flagstaff for a day and a half waiting for a radiator to come in. And we just got a hotel right next to the dealership, and we'd sleep. And then we just go eat at like Denny's or whatever. And Mike would sneak the cat in. And I remember he would try to make the waitress would realize that there was a cat every time. And one time he even asked her, like, could I get a bowl of milk? And the lady's like, what do you need a bowl for? Don't you want it in a glass? He's like, no, a bowl would be better. So he'd have the cat over there, feeding the cat. And then we got fixed up and we drove all the way to Florida with flat spots on all 4 tires. We got back in time for his mom's birthday.
Ooh, you got a song for us? We always throw a song on to kind of like head off into the sunset.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Dinosaur Jr. Off of, I forget which album, but it's the song Leper.
Leper?
Yeah.
All right. I love Dinosaur Jr. and I do give credit to Alien Workshop for how I discovered that band for sure. Yeah. I got to interview Jay. We went to France and did Jake and Trujillo's band played with Dinosaur Jr. Yeah. It was all time. It was like one of the best things I've ever done. It was so cool.
Yeah. Here's the 3 degrees of separation. This is kind of funny. I get a call from Mike Manzuri one day when I was like working I was either Black Box or Tamietta or something. He's like, hey, Brian, because I know Mike pretty good. Hung around him a bunch. We got some good mutual friends. Yeah, he's the best. He calls me up. It's like, hey, I'm going to be in Augusta, Georgia with Kyle Leeper filming a Dinosaur Jr. video.
Right.
And he's like, do you know anybody that can show us around to just some spots and stuff? I was like, hell, of course I can. So I called up a friend of mine, Jimmy, and just like, was like, hey, can you just show these guys around town? So yeah, like there's that video. There's all these different, that's not any real good skate spots, but it's just spots in town where they went and filmed and stuff.
Right. But, yeah.
Super cool. Like, that goes back to the reason I had always text you and emailed and stuff. It seems like every Talkin Schmit episode, I end up just super hyped up because there's some connection with this guy to this guy, or this guy just to me, or I've spent time with him, or I should know you. Like, we should be best friends because of all the people that we know together.
Yeah. Well, consider it anytime, man. Reach out. I know who you are. I've known who you are, and so like it's not weird when you text or call or anything. So I appreciate you taking all the time too. These aren't like a quick one. So it's really cool.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, we will dive into Dinosaur Jr. and I will talk to you soon, hopefully, and stay safe out there and healthy and everything.
Okay. You too.
All right. Big love, man.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Talkin Schmit. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. When you subscribe, you'll get notifications every Tuesday of new episodes the minute they become available. Also, please leave reviews and a 5-star rating. It's the best way to help the show grow. All of the episodes will always remain free, but if you would like to help support the show, you can do so at talkingschmit.com, where you can pick up some merchandise like t-shirts, beanies, hats, and stickers. The website has an entire archive of all of the episodes, with extra photos and videos. Email us with any suggestions, comments, or ways that the show may have improved your life at talkingschmit@gmail.com. All interviews are conducted, edited, and produced by Schmitty. The intro music is Mary's Cross by the band Nature. Very special shout out goes to the executive director, Cheryl Camisa.
Shout out.
Love it! This is Talking Schmit, where the Rolodex is deep, but the conversation is deeper.